What's up, fans of the very first Graflex Lightsaber we see on screen in 1977? Today I have a very unique build to show off. This is a Roman Props Graflex replica. This is the Generation 2. There were a couple of changes made to this newer generation of Graflex. And it also features a 7/8 inch Solos Hold blade holder, aluminum blade holder. And so there's a bit of backstory on this build. I was contacted by Master Stats last year around the holidays, and he said he was looking to have a build done for the original 1977 Graflex on this install. And then he said he also wanted to do a Darth Vader DD6, so that will be coming in a later video. But this one is now complete, the first of the two sabers he requested. And so there's a pretty unique backstory to this lightsaber build, and I'll go into a little bit of that, and then we'll jump right in and talk about everything this saber can do. Master Stats, when he started communicating with me, he let me know that he was not going to be able to use these sabers to their fullest capability. And I was shocked to learn that his current condition, that he was a quadriplegic. And so, correct me, Master Stats, if I mess any of this up in the comments, or I'll correct it or whatever. But the way that I understand it is, an evil Sith that was a robber shot him in the neck, and he was paralyzed, and has been in a quadriplegic state for over a decade now. So this is kind of more or less his 10-year anniversary of being in the current condition that he's in. And so when we talked about doing the build and his preferences, and I sent him my questionnaire sheet that has a couple of pages of preferences and metals and colors and everything, he let me know that he wanted to use the Roman numeral X on this to show that he was at his 10-year mark. Yeah, I gotta say that when it comes to situations like this, I always have the utmost respect for people that find themselves in these situations they didn't ask for, obviously unfairly. And Master Stats is an amazing guy. He's a true optimist, a true fan. And so when we first started talking about this, he said, I don't want anything too crazy fancy or anything super elaborate. And, after hearing more and more about the situation, I myself have spent lots of time in and out of hospitals. I'm now a 3-time cancer survivor. And so this particular build really hit home with me. And I wanted to go above and beyond and do something really amazing. And I know some of you guys probably watch my channel and you're like, who is this Jedi arms dealer guy being cocky with his world's first and all this stuff? And yeah, but I'm not a very competitive person in real life. I'm actually super relaxed and chilled out. But when it comes to creativity and stuff, yeah, I like really pushing the boundaries and the envelope of electronics and what's new and innovative, and especially in lightsabers. And so this is why I do what I do. A situation like this comes along, and this is where I get to do my thing. And so, of course I couldn't build him just something simple. That's just not my style. That's not what I do. So I think thinking about his situation during the course of this build, I think we're around the 6-week mark, really pushed me and my abilities and the envelope on what I wanted to do electronically with this thing. And so this saber does quite a bit, and we're gonna dig into that. But ironically, I had been researching how to make lightsabers remote control. And in the previous Graflex video, I have the one where I'm able to just control the on and off, the blade activation, deactivation, with 2 buttons on a remote control. Well, I started digging in a little deeper, and I found a remote control that actually will control 2 different momentary switches. And so I was like, this is perfect. And I let Master Stats know, hey, I'm pretty sure I can build you this Graflex to where you'll actually be able to interact and use this saber in your current condition. And so he pretty much let me know that he still has use of his index fingers. And so I wanted to, take that to the next level And so this is kind of what I came up with. This is the same remote control that's in the Graflex. And so here it is. And basically the equivalent of these two buttons is A, right here, is your main activation and deactivation switch on the red button, and B works the slide switch, slide tab switch on the Graflex. So we're gonna go through all the functions of what these things can do. You can completely control the saber from top to bottom with this car remote control. And of course, you know, I had to put, give you a Graflex keychain so everybody knows what this is for. It doesn't get confused or lost. So there you go, Master Stats, surprise number 1. Okay, I'm trying to think if there's anything else before we get started on the fonts and all of this. I gotta say it was an absolute pleasure working with Master Stats. He was a graphic designer for many years, and so was I, and so it was really nice to collaborate with someone on an artistic level. And everything that he picked out for the, you know, he wanted a lot of brass in here and clear acrylic, and you know, I just loved everything he picked out for this thing, and I'm gonna hate to see it go. I've been just messing with it and, you know, using it, draining the battery down and charging it back up just to make sure, you know, everything's good to go in this saber. And I'm telling you, I'm gonna have to build one myself because this is pretty cool, I think. So we'll see what you guys think. So let's go ahead and dive in. I'm gonna go ahead and talk about the outside of the saber and what we decided to do with some options and the weathering. I'm going to always start with the emitter. So he has a blade plug he sent me, I believe it was the KR Saber's blade plug. And so we've got, you know, the brass button in there with the spring. This is a piece of 7/8 inch acrylic that I found actually fits in and out of the socket pretty snug. And I'll explain why later, that I just wanted this to be a friction fit blade plug. So when it's in the chassis, you can swing it around and it won't fly out or anything. But what's really unique about this is I went ahead and took a Tritium Core. Now, if you guys know anything at all about tritium, this is something that I used to put in my crystal chambers a long time ago when I first started doing this back in around 2006 on eBay. I was making crystal chambers back then, and I used to put these little pieces of tritium. It's a tritium vial in there, and it has like a stainless steel top on it. This one was set up to be like a necklace, and so it has like a hole that goes to the top of it. What's really crazy about these things, and what I've done is just pretty much filled it with epoxy, and so it's almost looked like it's floating in there. I want it to look almost like a liquid cooled emitter with some bubbles in it or something like that. And so when I first put the epoxy in there, this was all clear. And I was like, oh, it's a shame that, you know, there's no bubbles in there to make it kind of look like it's bubbling from the heat, from the lightsaber beam coming out of it. And so lo and behold, about an hour into the curing process with the epoxy, this expanded because the epoxy gets really hot in there while it's curing, and then it contracted, and it actually cracked the acrylic and sucked bubbles into the blade plug, and then cured like that. So this thing is rock solid. It's not going anywhere. You could drop this probably off a 10-story building. But so yeah, this is some epoxy work in there with some stainless steel metal and then a tritium vial in there. And if I cover this up, even a little bit of light, let's see if we get the focus. You don't have to expose this to light or anything. It's its own, it's almost like a miniature fusion reaction going on inside of there. And it puts off a dim blue light for up to 10 years. So there you go, Master Stats. There's surprise number 1 for your 10-year anniversary. So we'll go ahead and put this in after I get the chassis out and show you, how to use this particular blade plug. This thing's pretty wild. So we'll set that off to the side for now. Now, as far as the weathering goes, I asked Master Stats, do you want to go with something super clean and shiny, or do you want to go with the heavy weathering, medium weathering? And at first he said he wanted to go with light weathering. And so what I do is give it like a flat gray wash from top to bottom, and then I go over it with the grain of the Graflex with light steel wool and take it down to where you just have, dirt in the corners and stuff. And so I did one treatment of that, and I sent him, photos from every angle of his Graflex. And he said, you know what, let's go ahead and do a second coat on it. I said, okay, we'll drop a second flat gray coat on it and, you know, take it down again. Well, in the middle of the second coat, after it dried, I was like, you know what, I'll go ahead and send him some progress videos on what it looks like kind of as a medium weathering job instead of a light weathering job. And so this is the state that I sent it to him. Turns out he really liked this. I really liked it too. It's kind of almost like a marbling effect. And so he decided he wanted to leave it this way. And I really liked this. I think this came out pretty cool. And like in my mind, the fictitious story behind it would be, well, maybe this is what it looked like while it was chilling in Obi-Wan's chest in the desert in Tatooine. And so when he knew Luke was about to come of age, you know, he pulled it out of his chest and swapped out some of the burnt parts from Mustafar. He put a new bubble strip on it instead of the circuit card from Anakin's saber. And, you know, swapped out some of the buttons and the glass eye and started to update it, but hadn't quite cleaned up the outside yet from Mustafar. So it's a little bit dirty before he cleaned it up, before he actually handed it to Luke in his hut. So in my mind, that's kind of like the stage that this was in, chilling in his chest. As far as electronic selection goes, at first I was considering doing the Prism 5.1. I started thinking, hey, if Master Stats is going to be controlling this thing with a remote control, let's go ahead and use a sound card that currently holds, you know, almost the sound font number of fonts record, and that would be the Igniter 3. It holds 16 fonts. Now, you know, I realize your Teensy Saber boards and stuff, they go higher than that, but you know, that's something normally you reserve for NeoPixels and stuff like that. Not always, but most of the time. So the Nygon card turned out to be the way to go, because Master Stats will not only be able to control this entire saber with the 2 buttons on the remote, he'll also be able to play music. I've got over 3 hours worth of different types of music on here. Or there's 3 different tracks actually. And again, the second track is like, you know, the over 2.5 hours of the Star Wars original trilogy. And then I got a couple surprises in there that, you know, we'll play real quick when we get towards the end. But let's go ahead and start from, let's go ahead and start with the fonts. And well, we'll start from the emitter on the weathering. And so, yeah, you guys already saw the blade plug. We weathered the brass tip in here. Let's see if we can get it to focus. The brass spring push button. And then, you know, we weathered the front and the emitter and the bunny ears. Slide tab switch. And then he wanted a smoked glass eye. And so what I came up with when I fire this up, you'll see, is this is the first time I've come up with multiple options, because he really likes to shine through as well, but said he wanted it to look, you know, more in-universe type of Graflex, and so he opted for the blacked out glass eye where no light comes through. So Master Stats, another surprise. What I did, I've never done this before, but what I did is an experimental thing, is when you activate the saber, here we go on font 1, this is what you get. Now I don't know if you're gonna be able to see this on camera. Let me see if I can get it closer. You can barely make it out. Let's go ahead and turn it on and see if we get it. There you go. Actually, you can see that. I'm surprised. So this mode right here is shine through, and it has the Jedi logo shining through. And then, if you want to black it out, you just unscrew the glass eye. Difficult to do with the gloves on always. Unscrew the glass eye, and then you're gonna pop the clear eye out, and then you leave the glass eye in there, and then here's an insert. This is a press fit, and this has the Jedi logo on it and shines through. Now if you want to go with the blacked out version, you got 1 of 2 ways you can do this. We'll put the thinner one in. So I've got a clear one for you if you want to just do regular shine through with no logo. And then there's a blade plug version, or I'm sorry, a blade retention version that's taller, that's blacked out, that doesn't allow any light through. And that can be your blade retention. There's also a smoked version that cuts the light down to about 50%. And then you have your full blacked out black version here. Now every one of these discs press fits into this glass eye. And so those are your options. You got about 5 different options. So there we are, we're blacked out now. And then you just pop that in there, it's a press fit. And then you screw this in and you're secure again. So let's go over some of the fonts while the saber's assembled. And there we are, we're blacked out. All right. So, because Master Stats wanted this to be an in-universe Graflex, it is a blue-blue-white tri-cree. And then getting down, we aged the pins. And I got to give a shout out to Jordan Eugene. He really helped me out a lot with this is my first time doing the Solos Hold blade holder. I think I've done all the others on the planet, but this one. And so this is what Master Stat sent me, was the Solos Hold 7th inch accurate blade holder, and it's great. It's amazing. But originally when I got this, I started looking at it, and it had kind of like a dull matte finish to it, and I was thinking to myself, I can't decide if this is you know, powder coated or anodized. And so it was weird for me. I watched a bunch of videos and Googled everything, and I couldn't find anywhere where people were talking about just sticking the LED with the heat transfer tape all the way in the back of the blade holder, because it says, you know, right on Solos Hold's website that this has a built-in heat sink to it. And it was just, I had never put an LED on like a matte black surface and was thinking, well, that is strange. I'm used to putting it on raw aluminum to where you know the heat's gonna transfer through. So I couldn't really find anything specific online about, you know, covering this subject. Do people grind off the coating and like stick it to the aluminum? I was like, that can't be. So I contacted Jordan Eugene, and he said, yeah, man, you just stick it on the back of the heat sink, and it's its own heat sink module, or its own heat sink built into the blade holder. And so he says, hey, you know, it's anodized. And so anodizing is a permanent part of the surface of the metal, and the heat will transfer through there. Which is still strange to me, because if you put a multimeter on anodized aluminum, it doesn't conduct electricity. Whereas if you put a multimeter on aluminum, most of the time, you know, it'll conduct electricity. So obviously the fact that it will conduct electricity but not heat. So anyways, thank you, Jordan Eugene. You solved the problem for me. And then also I saw in a couple of Jordan Eugene's videos, he had reused either the vintage or the replica hardware inside these holes here. And that was a little challenging, because you had to get out the Dremel and cut these down super short, and so then you can see the electronic hardware in there for syncing things here and here, and then, you know, we went in and weathered it and stuff. So yeah, the pins are weathered, the sync tabs are weathered, and then you got your standard bubble strip from Roman Props, and so there's some weathering and grit behind it, but I kind of kept, you know, most of it fairly shiny and new looking on the outside, but it's just kind of gritty on the backside. You got your Roman's clamp. Moving further down, we weathered the grips, and then I did some pretty cool things, pretty different things, unique things to the D-ring and the D-ring bracket. Of course, I weathered the end of this. We used some steel wool on the whole saber, top to bottom, to get the sheen off of it, and then did the flat gray on it. But what I wanted to do here is, you know, with the New Hope configuration, I always do the kind of like oval hole under the clamp that you can't see, and then you lift it up with a washer, and the sound comes out here and here. Otherwise, it's just super muffled. You can hardly get the sound out of it. So the other thing I did was, this is the Allen bolt that came with the Romans kit. This came assembled, and I've drilled that out. So that is drilled all the way through to the speaker. And then I put this on the drill press and tried to get the hex tool kind of to disappear as much as I could. So on display, you can barely see that it's a hex bolt, a hex head bolt. And then I put the sander on it, and ground this down a little bit to get the lip off of it, and I wanted it to look as much like a rivet as it could, but I still wanted to keep it modular, so you can still put a tool in there and unscrew this if you needed to for whatever reason, you know, down the road. But all of the sound modifications been done to this. And then as far as the orientation goes, what I've noticed, let's see, when you release the clamp here and you pull this back, look how the sound holes close up. Or if you rotate the bottom half, the sound holes close up. So the position I like to put it in, just for sound and for looks, is with the clamp loosened, I like to push it together like this. Now you get extra sound here, here, and here. So the way to look at it is if you line up these two holes on the clamp with the beer tab, straight line, and then a straight line on the grip. This is what I found for the loudest configuration, because the A New Hope's configuration is really difficult to get, you know, loud. They sound muffled unless you do some pretty serious modifications to get the sound out of this thing. So it came out pretty sweet. I'm real happy with how loud it is. So all right, that pretty much covers the outside. Let's go ahead and fire this up and go through some fonts. I did a lot of font work on this. You know, again, the Igniter 3 comes with 16 fonts. 10 of the fonts are, you know, the stock fonts right off of Nigon Electronics. And then I think 2 of the fonts were fonts that, you know, I had in the bank and that, you know, I built in for Master Stats to put in the Saber. And then 4 of the fonts were ones that I created myself. And it drove me nuts that nobody had the training droid scene from A New Hope for the Nigon card. So I just whipped one out myself. I downloaded the audio and cut it up, and it came out pretty cool. So there you go, Master Stats. You've got, I believe you've got the only Nigon Electronics version of my version of the training remote droid on the Millennium Falcon when Luke's training with the Saber. So anyways, let's do font 1. And you know, we'll go over the function of the Saber with the actual buttons. So here we go, font 1. This is kind of like a really deep sounding font. It's probably the loudest of the hums, but again, Nigon Electronics, so incredibly sensitive. And clashes. And then your blasters get activated here with the slide tab switch. You just slide it back and forth. And then lockup. You kind of give it a second or two before you go into lockup mode. Otherwise, it'll just keep doing the blasters. But you give it a second or two and then push it down. Oh, let's try it again. There you go. See what I mean, where the sound really comes out of those holes right there. All right, so power down. We'll go to the next font, which I believe is the Nigon's font. And so because Master Stats wanted an in-universe Graflex, he didn't really want the Saber to have any quotes from the movie, which I thought was pretty classy. So he just wanted, like, you know, electronic sounds and noises to designate the different fonts. So over the course of the years, I have been able to get a hold of quite a few of samples from Ben Burt's collection without any music in the background or noises. So that's what each one of the 16 sound font boot sounds are, is just little pieces of the collection that I've done over the years. So let's see, let's go to the next font. So there's the door on the Death Star. That'll be font number 2. I'm not going to do all of them and all of the details, but, you know. Let's go to font 3. I think that one's from Empire, when Luke comes up through the floor. And so I couldn't help myself. I had to put a little bit of hero music on there for you. If you want me to switch it to the second boot, it won't play as often, but I love this. All right, so you get the point on that. So I'm just going to kind of go through the rest of the boots. I might stop on a font that, you know, I created. But I just want you guys to hear the boot sounds. It's pretty cool. Whoops. There it started the music player. Let's try that again. Alright. Sure you guys recognize that one. And then dual phase. Now what I did was I made it switch from like a really white light to blue light on the dual phase. Yep. This is hard to do with the gloves on, so let's see. We'll do the next font. Little X-wing foils opening. Next font. Oh, and one other thing I forgot to mention, this is also going to be the operating manual for Master Stats. And so with the Nygon Electronics, it works different than a lot of the other cards. And basically what you have to do is, once you hear the boot sound for each individual font, like for instance this, if you don't touch this button again before the sample ends, it'll stay on that font. So the trick is to advance to the next font. You're going to click it, and then click it again before it ends. Then that's going to take you to the next font. So that's how you cycle through the fonts. Pretty deep startup and hum on that one. Next font. Let's show off the hum. This is a Nygon. Love that swing. That's pretty crazy. Next font. And I believe, there you go. So this is the training remote on the Millennium Falcon. I had to do it. So here it is now, finally in a Nygon card. And so the clashes are basically like when the remote droid, you know, shoots Luke or the saber. There you go. And then the swings are actually cut from the scene. So there you go. There's that training remote mode. And then another boot sound. Let's see, which ones are we forgetting here? Millennium Falcon Hyperdrive. And let's see, let's get to the one. There we go. This is the one I'm super proud of tracking down. No music. Just a raw sample. Princess Leia's torture droid while she's in her cell. This one wasn't easy. There you go. So almost to the end. Alright, so this lets you know that you're on the last font, the 16th font. That's the Millennium Falcon Hyperdrive failing. And of course, no lightsaber is complete without also acting as a hydro spanner. Am I doing that right? Inside the lightsaber. So this is a font. I just threw a bunch of crazy noises together and, you know, made it sound like, I don't know, maybe one of the droids communicating with the Millennium Falcon's computer or something. So here we go. And so these were some sounds I got off of Scott's site, the Nygon Electronics site, and downloaded and then mixed them up with a bunch of different mechanical sounds. So let's see. Blade lock up sound. They're long samples. yeah, you get the picture on that one. So we'll go advance it to the next first font. Go back to font 1, and then I want to show you how you get your music to play. Long sample on the way down, and there we go. Okay. Okay, so we're back to font 1. Now, Master Stats, if you want to play your music, if you're operating the tactile switches on the Saber, to play music, you're basically going to push and hold and the aux button, which is here, and so you just do this.
Somewhere in space,
and the music starts.
This may all be happening right now.
These are all the trailers for all the current Star Wars movies out right now. This starts at 1977.
Lucas, the man who brought you American graffiti, now bring you.
This is the trailer from The New Hope. It plays all of them, right up to episode 8. So to advance the song, there's only 3 tracks on here, but they're really long. I think this is, all the trailers comes out to be like a half an hour. And then, of course, you've got your 2.5 hours of original trilogy. There you go. Just kick back, relax, listen to 2.5 hours of your original trilogy collection. And then the last one is a surprise. In my past life, I was a DJ for many years, and so this is like one of my favorite DJ mixes of all time. A buddy of mine in the UK did this,
a long time ago,
and it's amazing.
There came a time of revolution when rebels united to challenge a tyrannical empire.
I'll give you a 30-second sample. And you can also turn on the Saber and interact with it while the music's playing. Alright, so you get the picture on that. Turn the Saber off, and then to stop the music, you're going to pull it back and hold it in the down position. Now that that advances the track.
Somewhere in space.
Hold it again, and hold it down.
Somewhere.
It's not going to do it now.
Somewhere in space.
Interesting. There we go. You just have to leave it in the down position, and then it'll go back over to lightsaber mode. There you are. It's back. All right. Now, let's go ahead and show you how to get this chassis out of here. And here's where the real fun begins. Also, I wanted to let you know, on the D-ring, I do a special trick in the vise that keeps this from rattling. That's why you didn't hear any rattles. Also did a little trick on the bunny ears so they don't rattle. If you miss your rattling, you want it to rattle around, you just do this and it goes back to rattle mode. But when it's in the 90-degree position like this, it stays there and it will not rattle. So there you go. There's that. So let's go ahead and get this guy out of here. Gonna release the clamp. Rotate your lower half. Go ahead and pull it out, and it is reveal time again. Now these are all Master Stats preferences on metals and everything. There are some surprises in here for him that he doesn't know about, but this is a crystal reveal, and yes, I went a little crazy on it. So this is kind of how you'll set it up in display mode, like this. And this is when the Saber actually sounds the best. I tuned the speaker, I moved it into the chassis just far enough so that when you put this on here like this, in display mode, in crystal reveal mode, you're gonna put the back half on like this, just to where this little black stripe is barely showing, part of the speaker module on the back, and then this thing is crazy loud in this mode. Here you go. And also, surprise Master Stats, he liked the blue LED bar graph I did in Don's build. So we gave him a rotating blue LED bar graph. Never done that before. Really wanted to set this up to kind of show what Scott's card can do. It's an amazing card, the stuff you can do on this. Alright, so that shows the reveal. Let's go ahead and get this thing the rest of the way out. Super easy. Let's take the bottom half, back off, undo the clamp. We'll go ahead and slowly take this off. There we go. And then you're going to, the only thing you have to do to remove it completely from the hilt is unscrew your glass eye. Set that off to the side. And then this is where you're always gonna grab it, to either push it in or pull it out of the hilt. Right here, this is the strongest part of the saber here. I mean, all this stuff's in there really secure, but this is the strongest part of the saber down here is the actual speaker module. So grab the hilt and you just pull them apart. It's a super snug fit because I don't like any rattling. So here we go. There you go. And it comes out. So this is your entire reveal. And I'll go ahead and fire it up and do a 360 once over, and then I'll kind of go over every detail of it. So one of the things that I discovered is I went with the almost like slide rocker switch on this. And there's two holes that come pre-drilled in the Solo's Hold blade holder, here and here, to hold this switch into place. And so what I did differently was use two acrylic rods and epoxy to hold this in here. So when you fire it up, you get extra lighting everywhere. There you go. So let me do a 360 so you guys can see what all we did with this thing. These are acrylic inserts, wire covers here and here. This is etched, laser etched stainless steel insert I put here for the slide tab switch to slide into and make connection here. If you just touch this, this is all your aux effects. Blade lock up. Now what you're seeing right there is I did my own take on the plasma gate, and the wires that you're seeing in there are the actual wires that feed the LED, and a piece of clear acrylic that goes all the way down to the LED module, and I did the fiber optic mirroring with the acrylic rod again in this build, so you can see it changes to white on flash on clash, and then blade lock up. And so what this guy is, let me shut it down and talk a little bit more about this section. Inside the plasma gate area, what this guy is right here is I'm always picking up crazy like LEDs, jewelry LEDs, you know, whatever I can find that'll work in these builds. And this has, I think 3 or 4 very small red and blue LEDs that when you apply power to it, they just flicker like crazy. And it kind of reminded me of like the blade effect when you're in block up mode. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna put heat shrink all over that and solder positive and negative onto it, incorporate it into the system. And so that's what happens whenever you do a blade lock up or flash on clash. This kind of like goes crazy inside the plasma gate area, just kind of showing that the blade beam is being you know, disrupted and stuff. So let's see, that pretty much covers the blade holder. In the plasma gate section right here, I added a bunch of brass screen, and what's underneath this brass screen are the receivers for the remote control. One of these controls the A button, one of these controls the B button, and you know, likewise controls the main and the aux. There's miniature antennas in here. And so when I put the brass screen in, it did diminish the range a little bit, cut it in half, but you're still good to go on plenty of range. And then, you know, let's see, we'll get in here a little closer. Let me turn a light on above and see if we get a little more. Let me set this down. There we go. Now we can get in here and check out some serious greeblies. So yeah, that's the plasma gate in there. Those are the actual wires. my 30 gauge mil-spec clear shielding, silver coated and copper wiring, and they wrap around the clear acrylic tube that mirrors, you know, the LED, and they're encased in a glass tube with stainless steel ends on it. And then, so, you know, we've got some greeblies. I also incorporated a lot of the leftover Romans parts. I don't know if you can see the two silver ones in there that are left over from the bulb socket assembly that comes out from the original Romans working flash. Moving further down the build, he wanted all clear acrylic discs in here, separating things. And I'm noticing as I get more intricate on these discs, I cut more almost gear patterns in here and stuff. With the really thin acrylic, it's not quite strong enough when we start cutting these gear patterns in on the outside. And so I went with, started using the thick and then the really thick stuff on the laser cutter, which makes it super strong now. You could probably light duel with this, maybe a little bit into the medium dueling, but you know, I'm able to do more things if I know this is gonna be a display saber. And so, you know, that's why I went pretty nuts on this one, because I figured Master Stats was gonna use this for display. And so I did the serviceable lithium ion battery. This is an 18500, and I'll explain why I did an 18500 when we get further down the build with my magnetic setup. And so again, in a few years from now, when you need to swap out this lithium ion, there's just two back-to-back super powerful neodymium magnets that are held in with these two copper pins for extra security. These will slide up out of the way, and then this battery pops out of here. It also has magnets on this side, and then there's huge soldering pads underneath to where you can just solder in a new positive negative, and off you go again with a new lithium ion. But this battery should treat you well for a few years at least. So we get over here to the actual Nigon electronic card covers, and this is something that I did on the laser cutter. I bought small sheets of anodized aluminum in like a gold color and etched small circuits right into the anodized aluminum. And then wherever there were some of the larger holes in the circuit, I drilled it out and kind of filed away to make it look like it's actual electronics that's wrapping around the electronics card. And then I have brass rods in here that hold all of this down. It's not going anywhere. It is in there secure. And if you need to re-access the electronics for any reason down the road, you can slide these out one little piece at a time, and then you can pull these out and pull this out and get full access to any part of the card, top or bottom, by removing the battery or either one of these. So we've got a clear acrylic disc for a middle support rod, and this is all brass fittings down through here on the three structural rods that go up into the blade holder. And so this is your power switch here, on and off. There's off. Then you get a boot sound, you turn it on. And then we've got some laser etched aluminum pieces in here for more detail. And then Master Stats, when I asked the question on the forum if he wanted the wiring to show or not show or be hidden, he said he wanted a combination of both, which turned out to be a really good thing, because there's 13 wires that are coming through this section of the saber right here that disappear through the holes and then come down through the back side of the crystal chamber, past the fins, and come down in here that feed power to the main crystal light and then the rotary LED bar graph. A lot of wires to go into this right here to make this happen, because it's I think it's 8 LEDs, yes, that rotate around and do all kinds of different patterns, because the Nigon electronics card comes with 8 accent pads. And what's cool is in every font that you select, he has preset patterns that do different things. There's like Cylon lights that go back and forth. You have just random lights that are going all over the place. There's just as many patterns almost as there are fonts stock right on the Nigon's card, which I love. So this is the really unique and cool part about this saber that I love, and I'm gonna hate to see it go, because this is the first time I've done something like this. Now, I've done a lot of experimenting on these cards, both Nigon and Plectra Labs, with supplying permanent power to these, so that this almost becomes like an appliance in your house. So the way this works is, once again, I used my magnetic 90-degree connector, and this has a really dim green LED light in it. And what you're gonna do is, you can see the USB magnetic connector in there. Do this on camera, and you're gonna feed it down in there, and then the magnetic part of it will automatically grab this. And then you'll see an orange light come on. That orange light is telling you that it's currently charging the battery. And then when it's fully charged, that light will turn blue. What's really cool about this setup is that you can set this saber down in the chassis or just with the chassis or in the hilt in display mode like this. And so, Master Stats, you can leave it alone like this forever, all the time. You can either have like the front half of the hilt on, and then it will be in reveal mode like this. So you'll still be able to get to your power switch and the recharge port. So you can have it, you know, like this, and then the back half on, which makes it, you know, crazy loud. Or you can just slide this up like that. And so let's start getting into the remote control part of this. Now, I kind of got to go into a little bit detail about the charging part of it. Because what I've discovered is that you can have the USB charger plugged in whatever mode this saber's in. Again, if the power's off, it doesn't matter. If the power's on, it doesn't matter. If you fire the saber up with this charger plugged in, that's fine too. A little bit word of caution. The LEDs do heat up, like all sabers, in the LED heatsink module. And so, just as a word of caution, I mean, I would keep your run times, because it's on display and you're not really swinging it around or anything, I keep your run times under about 30 minutes. This will make your LEDs last longer. And the charge circuit has a tendency to get warm also, because this is a 1 amp charge circuit. So when you turn these lights on, it is fighting to get power back into this battery to keep it charged up, and it's running a full amp recharge. So the little amp circuit in there, it gets pretty warm as well. Not a danger or anything, but it'll last longer if you keep your saber sessions between 20 and 30 minutes. That's kind of the gist of it. That's sort of the nature of the setup. So here we go. Let's get this in camera so you guys can see what I'm doing on the buttons. Let's slide this back a little bit so it's more in picture. There we go. So A controls your main right here. B is your aux. So here we go. And you're gonna see all kinds of crazy lights going on in here. Lots of blinkies, as they like to say in London. And there's a white LED in here in the front side that is mirrored to one of the blue LEDs in the emitter. And then there's another LED that's joined with pad 1 on your rotating LED. So auxiliary is on B. And then we give it a second to pause, and then hold down B, and there's your blade lock up. So as you can see, everything mirrors in the crystal chamber, everything mirrors up here, and then shut down. Now to change fonts, again, you're gonna do it the same way you do it with just this slide switch here, the slide tab switch. You're gonna hit B, and then hit it again before the phrase ends. Now you're on font 2, and fire it up. And then turn it off. Okay, so that's how you get through all your fonts. Now, if you want to play music, here's another really unique thing about this saber. If you want to play music, it has to be in the horizontal position, just like this. And so if you want to play music, you hit and hold down the B button. So it's going to go into all of the different trailers for the Star Wars movies. To advance the track, you're going to hit B. Advance the track again. B. Now, to get it out of music mode, you're gonna hit and hold B, and then it's gonna go back to lightsaber mode. Okay? So, that's how you kind of toggle between lightsaber mode and music mode. Now, the other thing about this saber I wanted to set up for you is I wanted you to be able to hear all of the sounds on here, including clashes and swings. So what you have to do, and you can leave it plugged in, is what you would do is you can set it up like this inside the box, or you can just leave it plugged in and stand it up vertically. The Nygon Electronics card has an option on the preferences where you can tell it that if the card is facing towards the emitter or towards the pommel. So it comes stock in the settings saying that it's facing the pommel. So I flipped that around in the settings, and now it says that the card is facing towards the emitter, which it's really not, but we needed to fool it because when you set it up on end, and I put little metal feet on the bottom of this so that you can stand it up. And so what this does is now that it's in the vertical position, you can go into the different menus and put it in demo mode. So the way you do that is you hit and hold B.
Saber apps.
Now we're in Saber apps. Now to roll through the different functions within Saber apps, you're going to continue to hit A until you get to demo mode. So here we go.
Color editor.
Whoops, my bad. Let's do that again. Okay, now we're back in Saber mode. All right, so erase that. Let's hold down B.
Saber apps.
Okay, and then hit B again to scroll through the menu.
Color editor.
I know it's confusing. It does too much stuff, right? So before it ends the phrase color editor, it's just like going through the fonts. You want to hit the button again before he stops talking. So you're going to say,
color edit, motion edit, demo mode.
Now we're in demo mode. Once it gets to demo mode, you click A, and what it's going to do is play every single sound that's in the saber minus the music. So you're going to hear everything, your swings, your clashes, your blade lockup. So here we go. It'll boot up the first font, and this starts demo mode. You can just kick back and watch the saber do its thing. There's the boot for font 1. And we'll just let it go through the first font. And then I'll show you how to get out of this menu and back into regular saber mode in the vertical position. But remember, it's got to be vertical to be able to go into demo mode. So the saber's doing all that on its own in demo mode. I'm not touching anything. Okay, so you get the picture on that. To shut it down, what we'll do is hit and hold, and see if I remember. Hit and hold B.
Saber apps.
Okay, and it goes back into Saber apps. Then we're going to continue to hit B until
color editor, motion editor, demo mode, spark color, saber set, igniter.
Now when it gets to igniter, that takes you back into igniter 3 mode, and then you're going to hit A. And now you're back in lightsaber mode, and you can manually control the entire saber with A and B, main and aux. So that covers the 2 different positions, horizontal and vertical. Let's lay this back down. And actually, let's unplug the USB recharge. And then I want to kind of go over the rest of the saber because I know we got interrupted talking about the recharge function and all the things you can do. So we get down in the crystal chamber. I went through all of my Aqua Aura crystals and pulled out like my favorite 3, and the one that fit the best was this one. This thing is pretty cool. It's got, I think, close to 5 or 6 facets on the tip of it, and so it's a really complex looking crystal. Did some copper fins, did some aging in there. We've got copper radiator fins with copper cooling tubes, and let's see, we get in super close. And then the other thing that was kind of cool is if you see this sort of gear with a light shining through at the tip of the crystal, I pulled that out and that actually fit in the hole right away for the top of the crystal. And so when I went to go flip it over, I was like, oh, I know Master Stats is talking about wanting the Roman numeral 10 or the X on everything. And lo and behold, look at that. Oh, that was a pretty cool coincidence. So there you go. That was even a surprise for me. All right, so let's see. We'll give a 360 on the crystal chamber. There we go, it's focusing. And so found lots of brass pins. This is a metal spline gear that went in there to house the crystal. And then these are also the original Graflex pins, the sync pins from the Romans working flash assembly. So I tried to recycle as many of your parts as I could all over the chassis. And there they are. All right, that covers the crystal chamber. Then we get down into the speaker module. And then again, you've got 8 LEDs that go down a rotating pattern down here. And so in the questions sheet, I asked Master Stats if he wanted a chrome looking dust cover on his speaker, and I decided to go with a flat speaker on this build because it's a much higher pitched speaker and is able to pierce through some of the limited sound holes on the A New Hope configuration. And so there's a 28mm flat speaker in here, and it is in gold. And there is your X on the bottom, Master Stats, your Roman numeral number X, and it is signed Master Maltese Jedi Arms Dealer. And what I loved about this is you can actually see, this is mirrored acrylic on the bottom, and you can actually see through this speaker. This, I don't know how they did this, but this is a transparent gold diaphragm on this speaker. So let's see, when we fire it up, it's gonna be stupid loud, but let's see, when we fire it up, you can see the lights through the speaker. I don't know how they did that, but there it is. It almost has a translucent speaker in the end of it. Alright, so you guys get the picture on that. So that pretty much covers the chassis. I'm gonna go ahead and pause the video here. We'll do a blade demo. So I'll take a break and come back and we'll show off the blue, white, and a blade demo and show how to safely put the chassis back in the hilt and get it all sealed up, and then go over some of your display modes. All right, be back soon.